Hello, my name is Scott Davis. Welcome to New World Birth. This is the care and feeding of a New World Age report for the Gregorian date of May 8th of 2015 and one Lamat or star or rabbit or Venus in the Mayan Zolkin calendar, with Mars moving into Gemini, the Taurus New Moon, and Mercury turning retrograde. And May 8th is one Lamat or star or rabbit or Venus. It carries the themes of abundance, playfulness, fertility, growth, rightness, physical pleasure, and spiritual inspiration, artistry, creation, joy, and humor. One star is also known as one rabbit or one Venus. The glyph for star is the planet Venus, which is associated with death and rebirth, as Venus disappears as the evening star and then reappears as the morning star. And Venus is the morning star after the inferior conjunction, when it's in front of the sun and cannot be seen due to its close proximity to the sun, which lasts about 8 days. And then before the superior conjunction, when Venus transits behind the sun and is not visible for about 50 days. Venus is the evening star after the superior conjunction and before the inferior conjunction. Both the morning star and evening star phases last approximately 260 days. And of course, the 260 days are exactly the length of the Zolkin round, and one star is the final trecena of the 260-day round. So the next care and feeding will celebrate a new round with one Amish or crocodile on May 21st. And I think it's interesting that modern minologists have emphasized the Venus transit across the face of the sun in relation to Mayan cosmology. But the Dresden Codex, which details precise knowledge of Venus's full cycle, makes no mention of the transit. It makes me wonder if the modern, if this is like a modern projection onto the Maya, because although the Venus transit, which occurs every 243 years during the inferior conjunction, is remarkable when viewed from the Earth, it's certainly a lesser energetic force compared to the superior conjunction, when Venus is hidden behind the sun, traveling in the same direction. After all, we Westerners love pyrotechnics, but might have missed the boat regarding the actual energetic as it relates to the spiritual realm. So this 13-day period would be a time to be grateful for any abundance or harvest in our lives, whether it's food or spiritual insight. And before I get into the daily energy for one Lamat or star on the 8th, all the planets appear to be moving forward from our vantage point on the Earth, except for Saturn and Pluto, which appear to be moving retrograde or in reverse motion. And remember, the themes of retrograde planets are a review of the past, reevaluate, reminisce, excuse me, and we can see these themes being played out. Saturn retrograde reviews our commitments, plans, and what we do for work and the structures of our lives. And this one's a little more complicated than most, because Saturn begins as the apparent reverse movement in Sagittarius, but eventually backs into the final degrees of Scorpio. Saturn retrograde is a taskmaster that demands that we take responsibility to review our beliefs while in Sagittarius and our ethics while in Scorpio. And when Pluto, the planet of transformation through death and rebirth cycle, is retrograde, which is, of course, again about the review of the past. It's about releasing anything from the past that is a burden to our new path. Pluto in Capricorn is determined in exposing the darkness, destroying the old order, so that we can rise up like the phoenix from the ashes and soar again. And Capricorn is about large corporations, structures like banks, governments, corporations, religions. And Pluto in Capricorn is going to be in Capricorn until 2023, where it is destroying and regenerating the structures that are the foundation of our societies, represented by Capricorn. So this is a time of a cosmic course correction for the entire planet. We cannot continue to harm Mother Earth for the economic gain of a few. And it's really the resistance to Pluto's lessons of letting go of the past that bring tragedy and pain. The big change for during the 1 star trecena is going to be Mercury changing directions as it moves retrograde on the 18th, and then moves direct on July 11th. Sorry, June 11th. So the end of the month would be a good time to avoid signing contracts or other legal papers, making any major purchases, or even taking a new job. So if you could postpone these types of activities, the terms are going to be much clearer after Mercury is moving direct. Now that might be impossible, but you can avoid, if you can avoid those activities a few days before and after Mercury's changing direction on the 18th or on June 11th, when the energy is at its most potent, that would be beneficial. And Mercury retrogrades really force us to slow down and pay more attention to our lives by making us focus on the details of our daily experience. And when we look at a retrograde cycle of any of the personal or inner planets, they provide information about a correction to our present course. And so during this report period, we have Mercury traveling through the first stage of its retrograde process, which began on May 4th. So really, there's two important points to be aware of in looking at the cycle. We look at the point where the planet appears to move retrograde or backwards from our vantage point on the Earth when it hits 13 degrees of Gemini, and the point where it will then appear to be moving forward again when it's at 4 degrees of Gemini. So basically the first stage, the stage here between passing 4 degrees of Gemini before it turns retrograde at 13 degrees Gemini, during this period right here, this is the first stage. This is about receiving information about what is needed to adjust in our direction. And then during the second stage, after it turns retrograde, before it turns direct, this is the actual retrograde phase. It's a time to watch for events that occur related to the information that we received during this first stage. And then the third stage begins once the planet starts moving forward again until it crosses 13 degrees Gemini, until it crosses the line of where it originally turned retrograde. During the third stage, we move forward with the revision to our previous course. Like I said, we entered into the first stage on May 4th. So from then until the 18th, we're receiving information about an adjustment that needs to be made in our lives. And then again, Mercury's retrograde from May 18th to June 11th. Which is the time when we notice events that shift our thinking. And then from June 11th to June 27th, we're in the third stage where we implement the change in direction from the awareness gained through the experiencing of this process. And one of the things that I found really interesting is I've discovered that Mercury retrogrades repeat every 79 years. So occurring at the same degree of the sign and on the same day. So what we're going to do real briefly here is we're going to look at recurrences of themes from 1936, 1857, and 1778 to see if those were interesting times. 1936, this is the time that we saw the radium E become the first radioactive element to be made synthetically. And also during 1936, Emperor Hirohito ordered the Japanese army to arrest 123 conspirators in the Tokyo government offices after the Imperial Way faction engineered a coup against the Japanese government. The Hoover Dam was completed in the United States. Nazi Germany reoccupied the Rhineland in violation of the Treaty of Versailles. Uh, uh, Richard Hauptmann is convicted in the Lindbergh kidnapping and murder in 1932 and is executed by electrocution at the New Jersey State prison. Tornadoes strike in Tupelo, Mississippi, and Gainesville, Georgia, for the fourth and fifth deadliest tornadoes in U.S. history. In the 1936 to 1939 Arab revolt in Palestine against the British government and the opposition to Jewish immigration begins. Italy annexes Ethiopia, and the and the Italian East Africa is formed from the Italian territories of Eritrea, Ethiopia, and Italian Somaliland. There's the first flight of the Irish airline Aer Lingus takes place. Excuse me, the British luxury liner, the RMS Queen Mary, leaves Southampton on her maiden voyage across the Atlantic. Thousands die of high temperature records during a major heat wave in North America. Margaret Mitchell's epic historical romance Gone with the Wind is first published in the United States. The Spanish Civil War begins. We also have the 1936 Summer Olympics in Berlin, Germany, and mark the first live television coverage of a sporting event in world history, in which African American athlete Jesse Owens wins the 100-meter dash at the Berlin Olympics. The first Moscow trials begin in the Soviet Union, and the start of Joseph Stalin's Great Purge in the Soviet Union. The Rome-Berlin axis is formed, and during the Great Depression, Franklin Delano Roosevelt is reelected to a second term. The first edition of Life magazine is published. The Comintern Pact is signed between Germany and Japan. Hitler mandates that German boys between ages 10 and 18 join the Hitler Youth paramilitary organization. King Edward the Eighth of the United Kingdom abdicates, and then we have a rise of unions in the United States with strikes across the country. And then 1857 brought France and the United Kingdom to formally declare war on China in the Second Opium War. There was the largest slave auction in the United States history, dubbed the Weeping Time, with over a 2-day period. Pierce M. Butler sells 436 men, women, children, and infants, all of whom were kept in stalls for horses at a race track in Savannah, Georgia, for weeks beforehand. James Buchanan succeeds Franklin Pierce as President of the United States. In Dred Scott versus Sanford, the Supreme Court of the United States rules that blacks were not citizens and slaves could not sue for freedom, driving the country further towards the American Civil War. An earthquake in Tokyo, Japan, kills over 100,000 people. We have the end of the Anglo-Persian War, the Indian Rebellion of 1857, with the 3rd Light Cavalry of the British East India Company army rebels against British officers, thus beginning the rebellion, and Indian combatants captured Delhi from the East India Company, followed by the siege of Lucknow and the second massacre of Kanpur. And Delhi was then recaptured in 1857 by British forces. The panic of 1857 begins with the speculation that U.S. railroad shares and the collapse on August 24th of the New York City branch of the Ohio Life Insurance and Trust Company, following widespread embezzlement, triggers a financial crisis which extended to Europe, in which New York banks close in October and do not reopen for 2 months. 1857 was a time also when we had Neptune in Pisces, just as it is right now. Um, and so it was a time when there was more compassion for the suffering of slaves in the United States, but also more opposition to that compassion, which has made its way back into the conscious event field with our awareness of police shootings and strangulation and death from spinal injuries of people with color without probable cause. And yet white people can carry military type weapons in public without incident. It also seems to be being played out in the theme of wealth inequality here in the United States and throughout the world, which if all your income only pays for your survival needs, then isn't this really becoming a new form of enslavement, as there's such a difference between the earning power of the 1% and the earning power of the 99%. And of course, here in the United States, we've got millionaire legislators who are voting for corporate interests over their constituents' needs. We are all certainly seeing the awakening of protests regarding racism and climate change. And I was reading recently that the 1% is becoming fearful of America erupting in the way similar to the French Revolution. And then going back 3 Mercury cycles to 1778, it saw that the American Revolution continue with the Treaty of Alliance and the Treaty of Amity and Commerce signed between the United States and France, signaling the official French recognition of the new republic with the Battle of Monmouth, the Wyoming Massacre, Louis the 16th of France declaring war on the Kingdom of Great Britain with the first battle at Ushant. And where British and French fleets fight to a standstill. The French invasion of Dominica captures a British fort, and there before the latter was even aware that France had entered into the war with the Franco-American alliance. Also in 1778, Captain James Cook, with his ships, the HMS Resolution and HMS Discovery, explore and map the Pacific Northwest coast of North America from Cape Foul-Weather in Oregon to the Bering Strait. In the Hawaiian Islands, Captain James Cook becomes the first European to land on Maui, and the Continental Congress passes the first budget for the United States. In 1778, the Continental Army becomes more organized fighting unit. And one of the things that I find interesting is that the tactics that were carried out by the Patriots early in the war would now be seen as acts of terrorism from our modern viewpoint, such as attaching a time bomb to the hull of the HMS Eagle, or placing cannons on Dorchester's Heights overlooking the Boston Harbor. But these are themes of the trickster archetype, to use cleverness and covert actions rather than attempt to battle a more powerful adversary on its own terms. Clearly, what we're looking at here are cycles within cycles. The players have changed role, but the themes of a decaying empire collapsing under its own weight, with individuals employing tactics of cleverness over direct confrontation and the oppressive power of fascist governments, the economic decline increasing the chasm between the elite and the struggling throngs, and the growing compassion for those left without a voice are the fabric of our times, as well as the fabric of these other periods when in these 79-year cycles of Mercury retrograde. So anyway, if you look at the astrology, at your astrology chart for the house that contains 4 to 13 degrees of Gemini, you'll find where these themes are going to be, where you're going to experience these themes of revisions, review, rethinking about characteristics represented by that house. For me, that's the 12th house of secrets and sorrows and self-undoing, the house of karma. So I expect this cycle will provide new information about completions to prepare for new beginnings. No matter where this Mercury retrograde occurs in your chart, it often leads to a changing of choices, goals, directions. In the world, look for the themes of completion through intellectual review of the past, particularly related to communications about topics like intelligence, adaptability, responsiveness, short distance travel, curiosity, fickleness, and duality when Mercury moves through Gemini. It's also the sign of its rulership. So all the Mercury retrogrades in 2015 will be in air signs of Aquarius, Gemini, and then finally Libra. So as we begin this Trisena, we've got Mercury is slowing down as it's going to begin to turn retrograde at 13 degrees of Gemini from our perspective here on the Earth. When a planet is slowing down to come to a stop from our perspective here on Earth, it's considered to be at the peak of its power. And Mercury is at the peak of its power. Reminds me that the Greek god Hermes, which the Romans later renamed to Mercury, was the trickster god. He was the messenger of the gods. And if you were not on his good side, you might not get the message, or it might be altered to mean something different than when the way it was intended. So in mythology, a trickster is a god, goddess, man, woman, animal, or spirit that creates mischief by playing tricks and acting outside of the accepted rules of their community. And I do want to share this quote from Joseph Campbell about the trickster. And Joseph Campbell said, almost all non-literate mythology has a trickster hero of some kind. And there's a very special property to the trickster. He always breaks in, just as the unconscious does, to trip up the rational situation. He's both a fool and someone who's beyond the system. The trickster represents the possibilities of life that your mind hasn't decided it wants to deal with. The mind structures a lifestyle, and the fool or trickster represents another whole range of possibilities. He doesn't respect the values you set up for yourself and smashes them. The fool is the breakthrough of the absolute into the field of controlled social orders. So this is a great description of Mercury retrograde. It's also a formula for confronting a much more powerful foe by being cunning over fighting on the terms that are normally associated with combating something that is more powerful. So let's look at the daily vibrational energy of this Trisena. On May 8th, we've got one Lamat, or star, or rabbit, or Venus, which is about unity experience, through being grateful for abundant relationships in the Mayan King calendar. I'm not going to be covering the daily lunar activity in these reports other than new and full moons, but that information is available on the New World Birth Daily Facebook post and also on the blogger New World Birth blog. The ninth is to Maluk, or offering, which is about duality experience through appreciating all of creation. And on this day, we've got the first of 3 Mercury square to Neptune. So from our perspective here on Earth, Mercury is forming a 90-degree angle with Neptune. And the reason we're going to have 3 is Mercury's going to be retrograde and then have hit a square to Neptune. And then Mercury will then turn direct and square Neptune again. So over the next, month and a half, we'll see that we'll have 3 Mercury square Neptunes. But so this is the first one on the 9th, on to Maluk. So, and the way this influences us is it can confuse communication, but it favors creative and spiritual activities. So watch out for exaggeration and boasting. Some will even cross into outright lying. Mercury is also, is communication. So an aspect to Neptune for a day or so, we have the potential for confusion about the details of mundane daily events, but wonderful potential to connect with spiritual realms through being in nature, meditating, or engaging in inner work. Overall, it's best to carefully formulate exactly what you wish to communicate, because it could be misunderstood, and it probably will. Excuse me. Daydreams are also to be expected under this influence. It's not a great day for negotiations or signing contracts, as these activities will not be very clear under the Neptunian fog. And then on May 10th, we have 3 Ak, or dog, which is about taking action through enjoying family and friends in the Mayan King calendar. The 11th is 4 Shuin, or monkey, which is stability through creating something new. And at this point, Mars moves into Gemini, so moves into the next sign, which brings an intellectual quality to sexual attraction, where affairs begin in the mind before they become a reality, a mental adventure that eventually leads to a physical passion. Aggression, likewise, will have an intellectual quality and may be seen as more covert, like manipulation or passive aggression, than actually overt violence. And then also on the 11th, we've got the Sun sextile Chiron, illuminating old wounds to release what has been stuck or is unconscious in order to allow healing. On the 12th, we have 5 Ebb, or road, empowerment through serving your community in the Mayan King calendar. The 13th is 6 Ben, or reed, corn, or reed or corn, being in the flow through maintaining the home is the energy of that in the Soul King. The 14th is 7 Ish, or jaguar, which is about reflection through enjoying nature. The 15th is 8 Men, or eagle, balanced through seeing from a higher perspective. And at this point, we have Mars in opposition to Saturn. So from our perspective here on the Earth, this is a 180-degree angle, which prompts us to take responsibility for our actions, which will emerge as new beginnings on the Taurus New Moon on May 18th. Mars is in a tense relationship with Saturn, so this can be cruel, as people will hold their anger hold in their anger after being wrong, rather than express it that the other has wounded them in some ways. So it's best to relax and avoid situations and people that produce meaningless tension in our lives. Excuse me. And then on the 16th, we've got 9 key or wisdom, patience, experience through introspection, meditation, and forgiveness, as Venus forms a trine to Neptune. So from our perspective here on Earth, this is a 120-degree angle. Venus finding support from her higher octave planet. Neptune is pleasant, romantic, creative, but not necessarily good for getting things done. This is a supportive relationship between the planet of romantic love and her higher octave planet of unconditional love. This might be a time when we experience universal love through our personal relationships. I think that this would be an excellent energy for practices and studies that raise consciousness, such as yoga, mysticism, spiritualism, occult metaphysics, as a way to ground the otherworldly energy in the here and now. This is also very, very creative and imaginative energy that it seeks and appreciates beauty. So exposure to art, music, poetry could help renew our consciousness during this pleasant, dreamy fog of this transit. This is excellent for any type of creativity that must be conceived mentally prior to being brought into the physical form. For the more highly evolved, this experience it could be experienced as great compassion and tenderness that this transit induces selflessness and spiritual love. It is a good day to indulge in daydreams and fantasies. On the 17th, we have 10 Kaban, or Earth, which is a manifestation through gratitude for Mother Earth in the Mayan Zolkin calendar. The 18th is 11 Etsnob, or Flint, resolution through being introspective, with the Taurus New Moon as it merges with the Sun and Mars and is opposed by Saturn and challenged by Neptune, which influences the new moon with feelings of some feeling lonely and isolated, then followed by experiences of perhaps irritable moods and critical communications, and then finally daydreamings and fantasies feeling more important than reality. Taurus is a fixed sign, which brings grounding energy to want to find stability. And new moons bring an opportunity to set an intention for manifestation on the following full moon. You want to look at your astrology chart to find where 26 degrees and 56 minutes of Taurus, almost 27 degrees Taurus, to consider what area of your life is being activated by this new moon. For me, again, this is another activation of my 12th house of secrets, sorrows, self-undoing. But this is also one of the most mystical houses and is linked to psychic power. So I set an intention towards relating to using that energy regarding that type of spiritual endeavors. The new moon in Taurus is about security, practical concerns, money, land, real estate, and our physical bodies. And then also on the 18th, this is where Mercury begins to move retrograde. So, what you have to realize is, from our perspective on the Earth, we see all the planets moving counterclockwise in the wheel. But so when Mercury starts to move on the inner track of the, in front of the sun, it starts to look like it's moving clockwise from our perspective here on the Earth. And that's why it seems like it's moving retrograde. So Mercury turns retrograde at 13 degrees Gemini. And, I find that even folks who don't follow astrology, are aware of Mercury retrograde's effect on communication, technology, and travel. This begins a time that shifts our review of information below the surface with a focus on Mercury's sign of rulership, Gemini, which is very fast energy that will speed up communications and interest in a wider variety of topics for the rest of the month throughout June and into July. This is going to be a long time for Mercury to be in Gemini. But from the 18th until June 11th would be a good time to avoid signing contracts or other legal papers, making major purchases, or even taking a new job. If you can postpone those types of activities, the terms are going to be much clearer after Mercury is moving direct. The retrograde cycle provides information about a change or a correction to our cosmic course. In the context of the retrograde cycle, I think Mercury is retracing his steps in Gemini to gather information that will be needed to support the tasks and tasks and projects that move forward during the peak numerological 5 month of June when Mercury is turning direct. Being flexible will be the key to adapting to this ever-shifting information of Mercury in Gemini. For those who have a high need for control, this is going to be especially challenged. Will also be an interesting time because we've got the Taurus New Moon, which is seeking stability, and retrograde Mercury in Gemini, which seeks flexibility. This really reminds me of bamboo, which is stable because it's flexible. So that might be sort of something to think about under the influence of these two different types of energies. And then on the 19th, we've got 12 Kawak or storm, understanding through recognizing the gifts in adversity in the Mayan Zolkin calendar. And then the Trisena wraps up on May 20th with 13 Ahau or sun movement to the next stage through honoring the wisdom and memory of our ancestors in the Zolkin calendar. So no matter what energies that are affecting you during the one-star Trisena, just take some time to be in the flow of the planet by being in nature or watching a sunrise or a sunset or communing with the stars or being conscious of the moment through introspection, meditation, or just really being conscious of being with somebody you love. Every day we have is a blessing, no matter what the dramas that beckon to distract us. We're all here just giving the performance of a lifetime on this world stage. So take some time to observe the play as well as act your part by remembering you're a spiritual being that's having a human experience. I want to thank you for checking out New World Birth. The next segment of the care and feeding of a New World Age will be on May 21st for one Emish or crocodile with the sun moving into Gemini, the Sagittarius full moon. You can check us out on Facebook, YouTube, and the Mind Magics website. And I encourage you to share this information as videos or as text as widely as you choose. And I invite you to contact me at newworldbirth@yahoo.com if you have any questions or you wish to schedule a reading. And I am providing readings, and I do wish to make this available to the greatest amount of folks, so that I've created 3 options with 3 levels of compensation. So if you've been thinking about getting a reading, please contact me. I would love to provide you a reading during these uncertain times. You'll need to be able to either call me in Maine in the USA, or we connect with Skype to receive your reading. We're also accepting donations to keep these reports freely available, and you can make a donation by contacting me at newworldbirth@yahoo.com for those instructions. And just so you know, we are definitely struggling here at New World Birth, there is a discussion about how much longer we're going to continue to be able to offer these reports. So if you're getting any value out of this and you have any way of supporting us, whether it's getting a reading or making a donation, we would be greatly appreciated, and certainly helpful to keep us on this mission of sharing this information uh, with everybody. As always, I'm blessed that you've taken the time to connect with my passion for all these ancient mysteries and their application to our journey during this incarnation. The light in me honors the light in you. Namaste, in Lakesh, and I am certainly very, very grateful for your support, and look forward to connecting with you in a reading or a future video, or in an email if you've got a question. All my best to everybody, and hope that you find some peace in your life. Peace.